inmate. But a guilty finding for any infraction, they could take 90 days loss of canteen, plus 90 days loss of getting a package, plus 90 days yard, plus 90 days loss of phone privileges, and they normally impose all of them to the maximum, and they really only have to do it between 91 days and 90 days. A low amount of days and 90 up to a 3 months period of time, 90 days. So it's like 81. It's less. It's a less number, but the maximum number is 90 days. And then sometimes there's some offenses where they impose 120 days. Then the inmate is no longer, if he did a shoot term, which is security housing unit term, for the offense that he committed. This is another form of punishment where he had to do a whole term, being in the hole, which is the shoe. And these places are not designed for that. They put you in the hole without all of your entitlements. That if you were in the shoe, you would have certain properties. But in Ad Seg, your properties are limited because you're just in there administratively, and you don't get to have everything that you're entitled to.
Okay, so I want to ask this question. I'm sorry for interrupting. I want to ask this question about SHU. How does that affect? Because you mentioned mental health. How does that affect an inmate's mental health being in SHU?
Okay, well, the security housing units today are now dubbed as restrictive housing.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
They were called STRH, which is an acronym for short-term restrictive housing. And these housings are equipped with mental health facilitators. Now, being locked up in the SHU is always going to have some kind of mental impact on you because you have to have some form of an outlet. You have to have someone to talk to. And when they strip you of all contact from your family members, when they strip you of all physical contact with any and everybody, because out in administrative segregation in the SHU, you're segregated. You're never in contact with other inmates. So the period of time that you're locked up is the period of time that you'll be without contact with anyone, physical contact. And it impacts a lot of inmates because the mental health program has in place, it's like there's a form of leniency. If an inmate catch a write-up, and then they have to do a mental health assessment to make a determination whether or not the inmate's mental health had an impact on him catching that case. So a lot of these mental health facilitators that do these assessments, they base it upon the rule violation report that hasn't been issued, heard, adjudicated. It hasn't even been, resolved. Mm-hmm. And they conduct an interview with the inmate, which only lasts a few minutes. And it's like this the only time you ever see these mental health facilitators is when you get a write-up. They're not coming around to see how you're doing about what you're in the hole for, and following up to see if you're handling, that you're maintaining, that you're holding up well, that you're not suicidal, that you're not having ideologies of being homicidal or anything. They're not really following up on that. The only thing, everything about the mental health program at High Desert State Prison today is just fulfilling quotas. To say that they did this, they went around and they made a report of each inmate that went back to the hole, and they reviewed them and evaluated them. But it impacts an inmate because a lot of inmates' mental health is based on paranoia, fears of being hurt, the peer pressures, the pressures from the gangs, the pressures from the staffs. These are impactful mental health issues that are real and they exist. And it makes an inmate, want to just say forget it all. And inmates they dub the term they flash or bust a nutty, they go off because they're lashing out for help that's not even really there.
Right.
And they have in place for mental health inmates who are excused of their rule violation reports based on their mental health. Every single inmate that's under the mental health delivery system is entitled to have their 115 thrown out and they return back to the general population based on a determination whether or not their mental health had an effect on them catching that case. So you got staffs, you got these facilitators, these mental health clinicians and healthcare providers making decisions about an inmate's mental health, and they don't even know the inmate. Mm-hmm. They'll look at the file and go back and bring some old stuff up instead of a fresh interview or assessment to determine what happened. So these clinicians and social workers, they talk to you for the first time for no more than 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes, and then they just make a decision. No, his mental health did not impact his write-up, and no, I don't think that he should escape punishment for this, because all they have to do is just say yes and yes. Yes, his mental health kicked in and had an impact, and yes, I think he should be excused from being punished for that, and then he goes back to the main line. But these mental health assessments are so vague and so couched. People who does them, they make their statements and they base it on these clinical terms.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
They base their decision on these clinical terms that the inmate doesn't understand. Mm-hmm. If he did understand it, he would have the ability to appeal it to say, this is not true. I don't even know what that means. She was talking like that to me, and like in lawyers say, they never broke it down to me in layman's terms, so I can understand what it is that they're talking about. The paperwork has all these clinical terms that cognitive disorders and cognitive reactions, and they don't nobody know what those things mean, but the hearing officer is only interested in that mental health assessment to be prepared so that he can render his guilty finding. Mm-hmm. And that's what's, systematically in place. Mental health didn't have an impact on it. You're guilty. We're going to punish you. We're going to do this to you. We're going to assess a shoe term. And a lot of these shoe terms are assessed before the processes, before you even found guilty. They call it a projected term, but they actually do the footwork, the paperwork, and the time that you're sitting back there waiting for the process, you're doing the shoe term. Whether you're guilty or not, you're gonna be doing the shoe term.
Okay.
Yeah. So it definitely has an impact on the inmate because he's trapped and bound, by these administrators, who are, more educated than him, than the inmates, and more skilled at what they do to acquire and assess these shoe terms to the inmates.
Right. So you're saying that the overall goal for the High Desert State Prison is to keep the prison populated, not so much, not just for the jobs or not to help anyone to rehabilitate or whatever, but it's also positioned in a place where that town depends on the prison to be there for their own resources. If I'm hearing this
Absolutely.
correctly.
Yes, you are. You are absolutely right, Deborah, because high desert is a desolate area. It's like in no man's land. It's a cavity between sets of mountains, that's really in a high desert area that's just, it's nowhere. And this prison allowed for a very, very small population, probably of 100 homes, to have an economy. And I don't quote me on the amount of homes, but this is how less it is,
Wow.
But then they've been building and rebuilding, putting in, malls and different little shops and McDonald's and, donut shops and stuff so that people can, flourish and bloom in the economy. And this is something that they're maintaining. And all the prisons have it fixed to where when an inmate rebels or get a write-up and they automatically put you up for transfer, an adverse transfer, their first goal is to send you to high desert because high desert needs to be full. It always needs to be full to maintain this economy there because there's nothing else there. Rehabilitative efforts, yes, they do have rehabilitation, but it's so far and few. The groups, there's only a handful of people who's able to attend. The prison is on lockdown. I would actually say when I was there, out of 30 days, the prison would be locked down 21 days because of shortage of staff. So they're not even being provided with the minimal amount of out-of-cell and outdoor exercise that they're entitled to by the Constitution. And it's normal. It's so normalized where the staff, they're enjoying coming to work, knowing that they're short of staff. They immediately kick their feet up in the offices, they hang out. They don't even be staying on their own job sites. They leave their positions and go hang out in other offices while the inmates are in their cells. And I used to see this with my own eyes at High Desert because I worked in the kitchen. So I used to see these officers, all they do, they come to work to take breaks. Once the day starts and they realize it's not going to be no yard release, no work release, no releases at all.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
They always say it's no education, store will be ran tomorrow. All these staff, all they do is kick their feet up, and they sit up in these control booths and often these offices, and they get paid to do absolutely nothing. Nothing. And it's permitted by their superiors because their superiors are doing the same thing up in the head office. Nothing. And they're doing nothing about trying to furnish the prison. And I'm going to tell you some more about that after we take this pause.
All right. All right, we're back.
Okay, thank you. I bring these matters up because these are facts about the prison life, the goals, the purposes, the objectives, and these things that are put down to the governors of California to get funded and to function. In actuality, High Desert State Prison, due to the lack of staff that is so regularly promoted, it's a condemned prison. High Desert is a condemned prison. When prisons first open, they don't put inmates in them until you have a full faculty of staff to facilitate daily operations, meaning getting up in the morning, making sure that workers go to work to cook the food, that all the inmates are fed timely, that they have work release programs where inmates go to their job assignments. They're released from the building automatically. They're supposed to go to their job assignments. Then they announce education release, and then they're supposed to release yard. And during yard, they run canteen. Sometimes they run packages on a certain day, quarter